Hi, this is Jose Saldiva, host of the First Year Experience Podcast, and joining me today is...
Cynthia Saldiva, First Year Experience Coordinator.
Judith Mireles, Digital Engagement Coordinator.
Eduardo Salinas, UTRGV Senior and UTRGV Street Team Member.
Terrific. So I've invited our guest today to join me in a conversation about thriving in a digital world. And so what we're going to talk about the different apps that are available to students and how students can use technology to make the transition from high school to college just a little bit easier. And so who'd like to start?
Well, okay. I know that for our first year experience and basically student academic success, we have teamed up with EAB, who does a lot of software and apps for undergraduate students. So right now we're really trying to push our guide app. And the thing with our guide app that makes it so unique from all the other university apps out there is that it's triggered to help you stay on track to graduate. So there are these things called journeys. So it's kind of like a checklist, but the idea is that if you meet these little check marks, you go on your journey, and in 4 years you graduate. So it's things like registering for classes, making payments. If you have a hold, it will automatically notify you that you have a hold and exactly where you need to go and who you need to talk to get it removed. You're able to schedule academic advising appointments through the Guide app and then get reminders. You're able to email instructors. You're able to set up meetings with instructors all through Guide. So we're really excited about that. Unfortunately, I don't know if our students really know so much about it, which is why I really wanted to be on this podcast.
Well, and I think that's the point. I think just in conversation with students, with faculty, with staff, particularly with staff, I hear all kinds of things thrown out. And so I know we were in a conversation a couple of weeks ago about points that you can use for dining and things like that. And you can earn points, if you check in and so I'd never heard of this. And so I thought, what a great way. Let's bring some people together. Let's have a conversation around this. The Guide app, I know, in working with first year students, not a lot of our students know about Guide. And so hopefully via the podcast and again, just circulation, as long as we can inform as many students as possible, it sounds like a wonderful app, to have something to remind you to do some of the really basic things that I think a lot of students not necessarily forget about, but it's easy to kind of just be consumed by sort of the day-to-day, I've got to go to class, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And just me as a faculty member, I know I have a laundry list of things that I've got to get to, and the day can kind of just, it gets away from you. Yeah. So how about Judith? How about, what's your take on all of this? And actually, tell us about your role at the university.
So as a digital engagement coordinator, I work with all the university social media platforms. So be it Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, LinkedIn, have Pinterest. But that one's not our forte. But, we use all these platforms to communicate with everybody. This is, how we answer your questions, how we keep you informed of what's going on campus, whether it be Alegría or Midnight Madness, whatever it is, that's how we're informing students. So, for example, when students aren't on the Guide app, they're able to find out this information through us. We started back in August this student group connected to our Facebook page because it's the platform that's most used by everybody. And we're able to update them on what's going on. So right now there's UTRGV Theater, and we're going to push that out and let them know, hey, there's open auditions or meet distinguished speakers. That's coming up tomorrow, actually, this week. Alegría, Ballet Folklorico. Maybe there's deadlines. That one's a really big one. Yeah. So whenever there's a deadline, payment deadline, registration deadline, things of that sort, we're able to push this message to the general student population. So when we started this group, we were like, well, let's see how it goes. And in the span of one semester, it grew to 4,000 students, which is really impressive. Yeah. At first, it was a little difficult because we had a couple of people in there and, had to be answering everything. But it became this really cool community where students help students. So someone says, hey, I'm having trouble with, my student refund. And other students who have knowledge on these things answer them, and they're able to work as a community. So I think that group for us has started a great bond. It's almost like our Snapchat, and our Snapchat is our most famous one. It's where students post everything they see, whether it be the man, the myth, the legend, which I met recently, and that was very legendary. Things like that, really we're building community, we're answering questions and representing what UTRGV is through social media. So.
Well, and I think, technology has kind of redefined community in so many ways, and so it's nice to see that students have this space where they can go and create this virtual community.
Definitely.
I think that's a wonderful thing. Tell us about your role. What is it that you do?
Well, we go out to public events, whether it be in the university or elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. We just try to get students engaged with UTRGV. Like Judith was saying, through social media is the strongest that we've been ever, because students are always on there. It's easier to go on social media and create a community rather than go in person. And so what we do is we help the university through all these social media channels kind of connect the students with the university. As students ourselves, as street teamers, I feel that we relate more to the students relate more to us.
Wow. How long have you been doing this?
This is my second semester.
Nice.
And I'm actually graduating this semester, so sad to go, but...
So it sounds like a really cool job. If a student wants to get involved and do something like this?
Well, this is actually a paid position, so of course when I'm gone there's going to be a position available here in Edinburgh. So what students will have to do is go on to the, what is it called? Career Connection and apply for the position. So it's definitely a really cool job. I wish I had heard about it before last semester because I love what I'm doing. I'm just engaging with students, trying to get them to feel the pride of UTRGV.
Were you going to say something?
Yeah, just right now, like he's talking about it, one of the cool things that I find about working with the street team is that we get to teach them how to use all these different platforms, these different apps, maybe different techniques, but it's also really cool that we learn from them because then they learn things like I wasn't hip with Boomerang, even though it's huge. I wasn't hip with Boomerang until a couple of weeks ago, and that's because they're always doing boomerangs. They're like, oh, I think traditionally, let's take a picture, let's do the motion format that we see from your iPhone, but they're like, oh, why don't you do a boomerang? Okay, everybody shake. And I'm like, shake? But it's really cool. So there's things there's ideas, there's a lot of creativity that goes into what they do, and they're like, hey, we're working on this post, or we want to let students know, and social media, while it can be looked at as a pro and a con, is really beneficial to the student body because not everybody is everywhere at the same time. So we might have a poster on this side of campus, but it doesn't get to the other side of campus. Yeah. And these guys are out there on Snapchat telling everybody, hey guys, we're going to be here, there's going to be this going on, make sure to come out. So by then I get the information and then I'm able to go have fun because I heard it from the street team or whatever other group does it. And I think that's the cool thing about having them around.
I think what's so unique about the street team rather than working in an office is that, like I said, we're students, so we're always around campus, we're seeing what events are going on, so immediately we're able to go on social media or let the coordinators know, hey, this is going on, you should post it. Get the UTRGV community to go.
Well, and I think, something that hasn't been said that I think when we think about how social media and technologies kind of redefine community space, the majority of our students are commuters, right? UTRGV is a commuter school. The phrase that gets thrown around a lot is a parking lot student. And so the students that come here, they go to class and then they leave, right? So really they don't see anything else outside of the classroom that they attend or the parking lot. And so I think, that's one of the huge advantages of social media and just technology, in that you don't necessarily have to be on campus to be up to date, to see what's going on, or to say, I have to drive to campus to go find out what's going on, or I can just check in and all of a sudden I can see what the street team's doing. I can see what's going on here and on one of the many social media platforms. I think that's terrific, and I think that's a tremendous way to just to again build community and just to outreach to students, because I don't know, I feel like not being here, I don't think is necessarily as powerful an excuse anymore that you have something like social media and technology.
And think we've totally redefined the whole parking lot student primarily through Snapchat. Social media as a whole, you get the update on Twitter, you get your email, you get it on Facebook, you're looking for an event, whatever it is. But our university is very unique in the sense that when our student body hopped on Snapchat for information, they went all the way. So you could be at home in Rio Grande City, and then you're going to see that in 2 days, this club that you've been wanting to join is having the meeting that you've been waiting to hear about to actually join. Yeah. And so that's going to motivate you to get out of your house, come to campus and say, hey, I found out about this, versus I never knew they had a meeting. You might see it in the student group where, hey guys, does anybody have this class? Can we get together and study? And it just kind of creates, again, that community we talked about. So you stop being a parking lot student. You start being an on-campus student, or even if it's through Skype on the phone, since we're a commuter school. Yeah. I think a lot of people are getting more into the Skype feel of having conversations, and I think that's what's very exciting for me as a coordinator to see the student body experiencing. Have you gotten any
feedback from, for example, I remember several years ago I was on the student union board, advisory board, and have you gotten any feedback from places like the student union or any of the organizations or other offices on campus to say just attendance is up, right? They're seeing the impact of it in real numbers in terms of we get more students involved, or we're seeing more students at Midnight Madness or at any one of a number of events. Have any of the offices come back, or has there been an attempt to, are we having the kind of effect that we really hope we're having?
So I think we see this through analytics. Okay. When we go back after an event, we see how many people engaged with it, how many people actually participated, how many people shared maybe an event, how many people interacted with us really. So it's not just sending an email and wondering if the person ever read it. Yeah. You actually get whether they saw it for more than 3 seconds, if they clicked on it, if they looked for more information. That's one of the ways we measure. And a lot of people, after we run a campaign, let's say for the student union, we do see those results. And another thing is you start seeing the pictures at events and you start seeing the crowd goes up. Yeah. So people are more informed. I know recently there was a basketball game, a back-to-school night. And so, with the commuter kind of thing, not everybody from Brownsville gets to come to a game. So I think they worked out this thing where they had a watch party at Casa Bella, and because we, promoted it, we said, hey, get out there, there's going to be this here, and there's going to be this tailgate over here. We saw a really big spike in people attending the watch party. Wow. Because they were more informed. And you can see the pictures. I mean, everybody was in there I think the day ended up being cold, so we had hot chocolate and pan dulce. But you see the difference in attendance through your analytics and through your outcomes. So definitely everybody wants to, a lot of departments do come and say, hey, street team, can you announce this? Or, hey, UTRGV, can you post this? Because they start seeing those results. And it's super cool to see that you're part of that. I don't know, Eddie.
I think as a student, when I came here as a freshman, like you said, this is kind of a commuter school, and we're trying to move away from that. I used to come here, go to class, go back home, probably take a nap, do my homework. But now I see that back then Snapchat wasn't a huge thing. Yeah. And now it's a really huge thing, and I attend these events, and I see crowds of students, and they have this spirit in them, and it's amazing to know that when I was a freshman, I would go to an event, probably there'd be 3 people, and now it's a crowd of people. So I think we're definitely moving away from that commuter school, and that's awesome.
Wow, that's great. So we're on every social media platform out there.
Well, Vine died, so.
No Vine died. No longer a Vine. Okay, so we're on every social media platform. What about apps? So I know we've got the Guide app. What are other apps that maybe students should be using to get the most out of the experience?
So Guide, and maybe Eddie can correct me if I'm wrong. Guide is a good way that we've established helps our incoming freshmen and even further on.
Right. So Guide, it started out, we piloted it with the incoming freshmen. However, now it's the whole student body. And the way it is that each journey you will see will depend on what your standing is.
Right.
So a junior is not going to see what a first year student is going to see, and a senior. So if you continue it throughout the 4 years, you'll be getting different notifications. It's extremely tailored.
So definitely, like, to stay on top of your academics, Guide has worked out. I know the street team tried it. They enjoyed it. We looked into it. It was a good application to have just to keep you in track of, hey, I have a hold, instead of showing up and saying, hey, I'm ready for class, and then, no, you're not. So having that to help you out is definitely a good tool. But I also know as a university, we use Microsoft Office. So that whole suite of, notes, Teams, we have PowerPoint on there. There's different ways, your share drive, all those different things. It's a good way to centralize everything, and they all come in apps. So personally, I mean, if I had this as a student, which I did, I think I just never opened it. Microsoft Office offers notes. And it's a great way to divide into class, by section, depending on the day you took the notes, if you're on the go. Versus, to me, writing traditionally sometimes doesn't always work.
Yeah.
So keeping this in a shared way so that I can have my notes on my phone, on my laptop, and on my tablet whenever I need them is just so much more convenient. And
it's so nice also to use like the SharePoint and the OneDrive, so you never have to worry about a USB or did I leave it, did I forget it? And now I see like my high school nieces and nephews with USBs, and I'm like, they still make them. Like, I'm just so used to like everything is in the cloud.
It's so convenient.
Yeah, it's really convenient.
It's really great. And Teams is one that we recently got on, and Teams is a way that you can share information, projects, so that when I feel like with them, I'm like, guys, use Teams, and I'm like, I just wish I could have used Teams when I was in your place. But it's a good way to share a project, sharing your files. It's sort of like a shared drive, but with the specific purpose of having teamwork involved, and you can have conversations and things of that sort. But
so it sounds like we've got all the bases covered in terms of, we've got Guide, we've got the Microsoft Office suite in terms of our academics and where do we need to be, courses and important dates and whatnot, sharing of information. But then it also sounds like we've got sort of the social aspect too, right? The building of the community via our social media platforms. What's next?
What's next? Like, what
where are we headed now?
Well,
I mean, so you've got the university, I'm sure, has a mission for how it wants to use social media, right? Improve engagement, create community. For you, right, in your position, where would you like to see social media go, or even just technology for the students?
I think in general, right now, it's a very useful tool. It can also be, a little crazy when you leave everything in one device. But I do see it continuing to grow to the point where I know right now we offer online courses, cross campus. So you can take like a integrity course, I believe, and you can be in Edinburgh or in Brownsville, but you're still taking the same course, same professor. You just might be seeing him over Skype. So I definitely like the way we've grown. I'm excited to see what other advances we have coming up. I know there's certain ways that we can reach out to students and without doing anything out of the blue or scaring you, just popping, hey, UTRGV sent you a message, It's a good way to interact with students. So definitely trying to find new technologies where we can dip into to talk to our students better, just to have that open line of communication. As a university, you have a question and you have no idea where to ask. There can be this one place. I know we have, the university operator, but students don't always think, let me call the university operator, or it's 501, and you're like, well, I'm not calling. So since it's closed, where do you ask?
It's also a little intimidating to, like, even me.
Sometimes to call.
37 years old, and sometimes I'm calling somebody and I'm like,
and you don't know how to ask sometimes.
So I can totally see how, like, Facebook is just so much easier. Like,
yes. Hey. I think it takes away that formality of having to know exactly what you're asking when you're asking. So I am the type of person, I don't know if anybody else in the room is, that will Google something the way I'm thinking of it. So I'm like, things I can do all around this thing. And I might not know the exact word at the moment, but then I remember it once I've Googled it. So that's how things help me out. So I feel a lot of times when students ask questions through UTRGV's Facebook, or even if it's through Twitter, they feel a lot more confident, and we do make sure that we sign off, either from whoever it is, or, what's going on. You can email us as well, to make it more personal, because before social media was about, I like Coca-Cola, so you kind of felt that connection to Coca-Cola, but now that company wants to make that personal connection with you. So now what do? We make it more personal touch. So I signed off JM. So if you ever have a message from the university that says JM, that's probably me. There's no other JM right now. So I hope. But that's a really cool way to personalize it, and it takes away the intimidation of, hey, I have a question about what is full time. What is financial aid really? Do I qualify for financial aid? And you can ask. And I feel that students, we do end up recommending, like, go call this office, visit this professor, but now they do it with more confidence than they would have initially. So that's a very good point.
I think social media, definitely, like you said, it's kind of a little less personal rather than talking on the phone. So people are definitely more confident to approach a question or something. I think my goal for the university just going on, I want to see both campuses more rather than being, it's Brownsville, it's Edinburgh. I want to see, no, it's UTRGV. I love traveling, and I know sometimes it's inconvenient, but I think my goal would be for students to be like, you know what, I have a class in Brownsville, so what?
Mm-hmm. One of the cool things that we saw on Facebook recently was the day it snowed. So it didn't just snow in one place. It snowed all over the valley, which was super exciting. And so what was everyone's first reaction? Well, obviously probably nobody was sitting in their office and no student was in class. But everybody was out there taking pictures. And so one of the members of our video team got out there and shot this beautiful picture of the UTRGV signage, which
Facebook
blew up. Yes, on Facebook. And I'm still I don't want to take it down. It's so beautiful. But it's a thing that everybody was able to relate with, because you saw UTRGV, you saw it in the snow, and it was a very exciting thing. Yeah. And I think in that sense, like Eddie says, not making it about whether it's in one city or another, or who took this or that. It was just UTRGV in the snow, and people just fell in love with that. So that's an example to me of how great social media can be to connect different places at the same time.
Okay. So we're running out of time, but I have to ask this. What's the downside? Because just real quick. So as a faculty member, faculty talk, and so I remember we always have a conversation about email and just email etiquette, and so students will often email us like a text message and just hey, what do I do about this, or even just incredibly informal. And so I know for us that's something we have to be mindful of. We have to remind our students, look, when you're sending an email, it's almost like a formal letter, right? Per se. What do you all see as some of the potential pitfalls?
Kind of what that is, understanding that our students may be very tech savvy in certain ways, very social media literate, but when it comes to emails, are they being taught what it is? I've received emails where students write the whole message in the subject. Yes. And it's we assume that students know these things because they're always on their phone. So is it how do we start teaching them these skills, and where do we see that?
I think one of our biggest, in general, humans, one of our biggest accomplishments and pains has been autocorrect, because people forget how to spell things because you don't have autocorrect. You're how do you spell business? Something like that. And it's so funny. There are downsides, of course. You take a little bit out of the professional, but I think that's something that you yourself have to take on and say, this is social media and this is the class setting. So, when I'm a scholar, I'm not thinking LOL, I'm actually laughing out loud, really laughing, because a lot of times we say LOL, and I think I've heard people say LOL, and I'm like, wait, you don't actually say it, you're supposed to laugh. You have to separate your academic from your scholarly. And while you can enjoy the academic on social media, you definitely have to remember that the classroom isn't an app. The classroom is still the classroom. You're still in there to learn. You still have to formalize everything. But your social media is just this informal way of sharing information.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers that.
No, I think that's great. I think, and even for me as a faculty member, when you said I get emails and students will write the entire message and the subject heading, and I'm thinking, wow, but then I'm thinking, they don't, they've grown up in a world where they don't have to ever email. Right? You can text message or, whatever. Right. And so for my generation, we grew up with, sort of came along with email. Right. And so we understand the formality of it, and at least the sort of the rules that kind of come along with it. And so I never thought about that until you, just that example, kind of whoa, students maybe typically don't email. Right, and so
I'm curious, from a student street team position, how do you see the disadvantage of texting?
Well, I think definitely social media is more informal, like we're saying. So you're obviously going to have this student who doesn't message you formally, but I think it's just a skill that students are going to develop as they grow professionally in college. I know. In my age, I know a little bit of both. I knew email etiquette and I texted my friends LOL, whatever. But I think students nowadays, definitely they didn't grow up with email. It's more social media, more informal. So I think it's just something that they're going to develop as they grow professionally in college.
Thank you. Well, this has been incredibly informative. And so I think lessons to be learned, right? We're covering all bases. We've got the Guide app. We've got, I mentioned the Microsoft Suite and all of the apps that come with that. The university's on nearly every form of social media, right? There's no excuse not to be connected. And so I guess for all of our students, all of our listeners, get connected, right? It's not an excuse, right? We've got a very full sort of online community, right? And so students should take advantage of that. And it seems like a lot of these resources can help ease that transition for our students that are coming to the university for the first time, or maybe even have been here for a while. Any final thoughts?
I think we can all agree, stay connected. I mean, there's one way, whether you don't have a Facebook and you're strictly on Snapchat, or you're more of a tweeter, you can definitely follow us on Twitter, but stay connected inside the classroom. I think off your phone is very important to remember, but also stay connected when you leave the classroom, and know that everything you do at the university can help you grow into your future career. Or if you don't stay connected, you can do the exact opposite of why you're here. So, excellent advice.
Well, I think we should get students should get involved in online communities. If you don't like personal involvement, just like you said, stay connected. Get involved in Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, anything.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining me today. It's been incredibly informative and eye-opening for me. This concludes another episode of the First Year Experience Podcast. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.